How many of you have seen Judgment at Nuremberg? Judgment at Nuremberg was the depiction of the trial by the Allies after World War II of German judges who enforced the laws of Germany and did so. They enforced the laws of the Holocaust, they enforced the laws of anti-Jewish laws, laws where you couldn't marry Jews, laws where you couldn't affiliate with Jews. And the point was that in Hawaii one day, the judges are going to have to face the same kind of scrutiny in terms of what are their responsibilities. If they know they're doing wrong, and if they know that this island was never taken over by the United States, if they know that Hawaii is occupied, then they are just as guilty as anyone else. And so what I try to do in my law school teaching is to train the law students to be aware of the fact that you can't just go out there and hide behind the law and say, oh, I didn't know about this. That was the Nuremberg defense. The Nuremberg defense was, oh, I was just doing my job. I'm a good German. And the Nuremberg defense was rejected by the Allies. And we have Polly here today. I'm sorry. It's okay. Not tired. But why don't we let him speak about the press release that's coming out. But my story was that everyone's involved when it comes to things like the incarceration of our people on the mainland. That's wrong. That's wrong under the Hague Convention. That's wrong under the Geneva Convention. The United States came in and occupies Hawaii. They're doing it illegally, and they're taking our people and violating the Geneva and Hague Conventions by incarcerating them outside of the country in which they belong. And they're incarcerating them basically political acts of resistance. Those who are in jail are, with few exceptions, not your murderers, not your rapists, but people who are alienated by the structure of the system. They cannot live in Hawaii the way it is. They cannot live in the kind of values where development and housing and military is the emphasis. And so how do they react? They turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they turn to things to escape. And they're being prosecuted for basically what are considered medical conditions in other countries. And so they end up in jail, and they end up in this system where we can't afford to incarcerate them in Hawaii, and so we ship them to other states, even states that are part of the United States when we're not part of the United States. And so I think it's very, very important that we work on releasing our pahea from these prisons, and we talked about how to do it, and it's a political strategy. Political strategy is basically that the legislature has enacted a bill saying that in fact it wants a Pu'uhonua, and it wants a Pu'uhonua at Kulani Correctional Facility, and that's its first preference. The governor has the power to choose. And the governor won't choose Kulani Correctional Facility, and so we wanted him to examine that site and tell us why it was not appropriate. And they came back and they just filed a finding of no significant impact, which is basically, oh, we find that there's no significant Hawaiian interest in this. And so we had to go and write a complaint, basically saying that this is wrong. Like a contested case hearing or an environmental impact statement, you've got to tell us the impacts that building a prison out of Kulani Correctional Facility will have on Hawaiians. It will only perpetuate the wrong. It will be built on Hawaiian lands. It will be destructive of a Hawaiian sense of spirituality. So that we cannot stop the governor. We cannot make him choose Kulani's Correctional Facility, and he knows that. But the larger plan is to convince him that the people of Hawaii are behind this, the legislature is behind this, and that it's a no-lose proposition to him. The cost of incarcerating a Bahia in Arizona, or even in Kulani Correctional Facility, is far greater than the cost of Pu'uhonua, which is going to rely on forgiveness, spirituality, education, ties to the family, reintegrating the person with the community. That's the way in which we heal these people who have been subject to the criminal justice system. And everybody knows it's much more expensive to operate a prison than a city of refuge or a Pu'uhonua. And sooner or later, it's going to happen. We want it to happen sooner. And we want it because these people have been rotting away in jails on the mainland. They've been suffering. They've been without their families. They've been deprived of the connection with their families that's essential to their rehabilitation. So the larger political strategy here is to put pressure on the governor. The lawsuit that we filed was a suit basically saying, why aren't you going to tell us what the impacts are of building another minimum security prison? Why aren't you going to tell us what this does to Hawaiians? Why aren't you going to address the high percentage of Hawaiians who are in the criminal justice system? Don't you think that there's a relationship that Hawaii was overthrown and that so many of our young people are in trouble with the law? They're not in trouble with the law just because they're troublemakers. They are having troubles living in a world where they don't have a homeland. The homeland is occupied by the United States. They have no place to practice their religion, their skills, their language. If you were Japanese and you came to Hawaii, you have Japan to go to, where someone is working on the Japanese language, they're speaking Japanese, they're cooking Japanese food. You don't have the task, when you move to Hawaii from Japan, of having to reinvent Japanese culture. You don't have the task of having to keep it alive. Your homeland is still intact. Hawaiians don't have their homeland intact. And that's why so many of our young people are confused, they're acting out, they're challenging the law, but most of all, they're harming themselves in a way to survive in a hostile environment. So the lawsuit is one piece of the puzzle. It's to push the state to look at Ohana as a serious player, as a serious partner in the discussions as to how incarceration should take place. There was I believe there was a television portrayal called the Juvie Justice System, and they showed that in Baltimore they're relying on the Maori system of juvenile justice to rehabilitate their people. The Polynesians had a way which was appropriate for living in islands. They had a way in which a city of refuge and forgiveness was a very critical part of living on an island. And so we are learning from Hawaiians more and more. Our water rights are becoming more like Hawaiians. Our system of government, our system of political division of lands, the Ahupua'ale system. All of these things are Hawaiian, and they are sustainable, and they have proven themselves over thousands of years of operation. So one of the plans is to move with this lawsuit and to put pressure on the state to explain why they're not going to use Kulani as a Pu'uhonua. They're obligated under Act 117 to create a Pu'uhonua somewhere. Why not choose the most logical, most feasible place to begin? Well, they don't trust us as a leader. They don't trust us in administering to our own people. The second part of this puzzle is to get the United States involved in understanding its relationship to Hawaii, that it overthrew the Kingdom of Hawaii, that it annexed the Hawaiian Islands, and that they too are responsible for the high number of Hawaiians who are in prison. And I think Polly is going to speak about the press release and the press conference that we're going to have calling for the Justice Department investigation of the conditions of Hawaiians in the prisons.
Certainly. Polly, I'm supposed to talk about the federal side, but you're wondering why are we doing it? We're just a community organization, or does concerned citizens like you all are too tonight. Why do we have to do work that governments neglect and responsibilities that they neglect? And we're looking at saying, we probably would not be here if it wasn't for the statistics that the state has and the feds have put together a study to show the situations of Native Hawaiians. Now, they come up with all their stats. It's not our stats, it's their stats. But nobody does nothing about it. So you got this increase of Native Hawaiians incarcerated in prison, and yet we're the fourth in the census of population equal to the Filipino people today. So we as a race of people are slowly disappearing. But in the social side of life, we lead. It's kind of like showing that, yes, government did come and say, now we destine your future, you Hawaiians don't get to speak for yourselves. So that happened, what, a couple hundred years ago, or 150 years ago. So this is the results. So how does that get addressed, and who's going to address it? How many governors that went by that allow statistics to show and stats to show an increase in this behavior of Native Hawaiian people? And yes, okay, we may say you got the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. They've been around for 25 years. They're not lifting a hand to do anything like we're trying to do. So you can see that there's a big neglect on treating Hawaiians, and government's not being responsible, and education departments not conditioning the young to look at these kind of situations of the social life of Hawaiians. And it's the responsibility of maybe the Hawaiian Trust and different departments, but it's not the responsibility of everybody. I think it is. I mean, this is Hawaii. Everybody calls Hawaii their home. We're not a continent, so you really can't hide. And I think that because we're an island, they've kind of threw us in the stir fry to get lost in the population and the glitter about our situations as Native Hawaiians. And of course, the people that run our departments are pretty comfortable because you can't see no change. If statistics are not changing, then nobody's doing nothing. That's how basic it is. And it's been happening like that throughout the history, I mean, of the United States with ethnic people. And in Hawaii, we're really getting the treatment by not allowing us to address the situations that put us in these social predicaments. So now we're saying that if there's an avenue that we could use to bring this to the surface and say, yeah, it's a lawsuit, but we know the long shots in winning a lawsuit. But maybe it's a window and an opportunity to express what we're talking about, to show the statistics of what we're talking about, to let the public know that, yeah, we are paying attention and it's big neglect. And how much does a Hawaiian have to give in the community as a Hawaiian? I mean, we're all comfortable in Hilo or on this island, but everybody buys their products on a reservation type of land, on Hawaiian homelands. You know, what does a Hawaiian get out of this? He gets to wait because they'll never rip up a parking lot at Walmart and put a Hawaiian home there. You know that already. So this Hawaiian who has a right to these lands don't get to use them because of administration again, government running their lands. It's Department of Hawaiian Homelands, but it seems like everybody has an opportunity to use it more than the Hawaiians do. And it's bailed out the whole east side of this island by using Hawaiian lands. They're not on Mr. Johnson's land or Mr. Sasaki's land, they're on Hawaiian homelands. And that's where everybody will fix their car, fix their house, do everything that you're doing, even buy Pampers. You're all on Hawaiian homelands. I mean, then you got the whole security of the United States using Pu'uhonua to say we're going to protect America, we're going to use Hawaiian homeland so we can practice on it. It's the Hawaiian, it's the Hawaiian, it's the Hawaiian. And how come we are in this predicament when we've been so generous in how you look at what the Hawaiians have given to the communities and how the communities and government rip them off? So here we are at the bottom, not grumbling or trying to say, hey, we want Hawaiians to be in business. We want Hawaiians to have a good life or be CEOs or something. No, I'm not saying that. We're talking about the Hawaiians that they let fall through the cracks, and then it's multiplying itself. It's about the Hawaiians that nobody want to care about no more. And you're wondering who's going to care for them if government's not going to be responsible. Then it's going to be organizations and people like us that's going to say, we got to do something. Well, yeah, I mean, we hug a lot of things in the environment that we care about, but we don't care about the Hawaiians that live here in these islands that had no really say so on their future. They've just been occupied and it just never looked back since. So I know there will always be generations of mad people or mad Hawaiians knowing that the history is so blatant and nobody's correcting them. So the way you get out of that 9 out of 10 times is you commit crimes or you get vulnerable to become some kind of a social problem. You're vulnerable to every escapee of a social problem. So where does that end up? Ends up in jail. It ends up in prison. And then when you look at the statistics of things, the Hawaiian is leading in this role, and today with 6,000 prisoners and 4,000 Hawaiians. So now all of a sudden, the Hawaiian's miserable part of his life, the downslide of a human being, becomes a commodity for government. Government start making money off of this Hawaiian by making 40,000 tax dollars per person to stay in jail for 5 years for 40,000 a year for a $5,000 car. So it don't make no sense. And it's just being blatant and just say, I'm going to use numbers and that's all I care about. If the numbers were Hawaiians leading in this number, I wouldn't be in this jail. But why is it we're there? And we're not the minority here, majority in Hawaii anymore, but we lead in the downsides like this. And how can we stop? Make government more responsible about saying, you've taken so much from the Hawaiians from their lands, you've taken their ceded lands that were crown lands, ceded to the state, you collect money and rent from these lands, that's why the airports are there, and boat transportations and harbors and all the Department of Transportation ceded lands, and you give the Hawaiians back 20%. How long have you been giving 20%? And how much revenue have you really collected? And how come we only get 20%? Isn't it our land from the beginning? So why isn't it the other way around? Government figure out how to run government, not use my land and my money, and we become these social statistics on bad and health and everything else that follows after prisoners, and you capitalize on that. Who's really taking advantage of what, man? And how much Hawaiians really care? Or is it all the Hawaiians that are comfortable with their positions that they're at today, wherever they're sitting in these trusts? All comfortable in the trust, so they don't need to do nothing? Just go make waves? Just be happy? Is the trust living up to their obligations that adjust to these times? Or are we talking about a trust that was set up 1800s? When do these trusts move up to adjust to 2000, where we're at today? And say we have to make changes in our vision because the vision isn't there anymore. The reasons we created these trusts are different than they are now. Why don't we make adjustments to that so we can deal with these Hawaiians that fall through the crack? What you got, 50%ers that fall through and go in jail? You got enough percentage that go Kamehameha School that's going in jail? Every trust and whatever their guidelines about how they treat the Hawaiians in these trusts, they're all in prison, they fit. But there's nothing in the trust that say we can't go and fix that. Maybe you can't come to Kamehameha School because you gotta pass a test and you gotta have a blood quantum. Fine, that's your rule. But that don't mean you cannot help prisoners, Hawaiian children that's going to boys' school, girls' school. Your trust doesn't say you cannot do that. You just don't do it. And that's the embarrassment we go blame. You know, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, which is true. But what's a trust supposed to do? Watch. They're part of the problem. I mean, I think we're the wealthiest race. If you look at all the money that this trust has, than any other nation of Hawaiian people. Look at the portfolios of these trusts. And we're supposed to be in these poor situations? You can see the rip-off and the neglect. And really, not just blatant, in front of all the people that live in Hawaii today, to watch what the trusts are doing, to watch them, watch their own people become statistics. It's a big problem. And I think that every governor is responsible. They can go tell a trust about their part and their duty. But no, we end up with governor after governor after governor, and government after government after government, and the statistics still stays the same, if not worse. And it's sad that it gets worse when you're the least of the population. Now, how do you hide? So they're saying, well, we don't want to take a prisoner with Hawaiians only. Well, maybe we're the only state constitution in the United States that talks about a race. Maybe you should do your homework and look and say, what's the state constitution? California, Oregon, Washington, all that. Does it say like Hawaii? Article 12, Section 7 of the state constitution? Uphold traditional and customary practices? Is it taking care of ourselves and having our own prison because nobody else is taking care? Isn't that a traditional and customary way? Pu'uhonua, a place where you can come and have a different attitude about who you are. Don't have this Sigmund Freud stigma stuck on top of fixing things. We're not from that type of tree. We have a whole different understanding about plantation and colonialism and plant genocide. I mean, that's not the Sigmund Freud kind of talk. But that's what we get. We don't want to address those situations about migrations and impacts as done from Hawaiians from day one of impacts of migration. Let alone PTSD about the overthrow. And all the Hawaiians that live downtown Honolulu, what? Those Hawaiians were different kind of Hawaiians than downtown Kau. From way back. These ones already were saying, I accept. That's the way it is. I can see it. I'm going to go with the flow. And we're going to make history. So all about Hawaii is all about downtown Oahu. Nothing about us on our islands. Then we get judged by that mentality. We get treated like by that mentality of Hawaiians. You guys understand, the blacks went through the same thing. They had the black one working in the plantation, working inside the house with the maid, or being a maid. He was different than the black guy out there in the bushes working on in a cotton field. That's the same mentality. You get the one downtown Oahu Hawaiian, and you got us living outside here, and they impose all these ways and ideas on us out here who's living as close to the land, as close to traditions, as long as possible. And feel that, you know, if we really wanted one Oahu over here, we could have really done it if we wanted. But we don't really want it. We want to live this way. I can catch a plane and go to Oahu. But I want to live with my resources. I want to live with my responsibility. I want to live with my family's responsibility and role of where I come from and what I was raised. But I'm being told how to live. I'm being judged how I live by the Hawaiians that live on Oahu. And you can see what kind of Hawaiians that is. If we're here pleading about Hawaiians falling through the cracks, and why are there so many? And all the Hawaiians in downtown don't even catch it. And with technology today, you just one finger and you find all the answers or see all the problems. And they don't seem to understand. The governor and all the legislature is going to say, well, you know, if we start looking at reducing prisoners, then we're going to lose 200-something million a year on public safety. 200 million plus runs public safety with tax dollars in Hawaii. I like that. And nobody seems to want to address that. We're a remedy to that problem. And we're a remedy to the state by saying, you haven't taken care, you had a chance, you have histories of chances. Governors and legislators, how many years of this stuff? And we're going to come up and bring up the same problem that was started a long time ago, just that it compounded itself so much now that we got to raise the issue. And are we not good enough raising these issues? You know, we get turned down by law firms in Hawaii that don't seem to want to champion this whole thing about Native Hawaiians. The lawyers say, oh, man, I don't think we can win this issue. It's not about winning, it's an issue. You know, when do we ever win Hawaiians in courts? Well, we always seem to bring it to a light so people can look at it, people can see it. In other words, don't kick that stone again. We let you know it's there. If that's all we got, that's all we got. But if we don't do nothing and say nothing, we got nothing. Because you can see government's not doing nothing. And that's the sad part. The people in government aren't passionate people. They all got egos. The ego people. They're not passionate about nothing. So I'm saying that we think that this kind of time and issue has to be raised. Maybe something might happen before next legislation. We know we're probably going to get kicked around in this system because Abercrombie doesn't want to give up Kulani. They already committed $500,000 to repairing it for the prisoners to come home. He's got 6,000 prisoners. I don't know how 200 is going to fix this so-called way I'm going to fix. He's not fixing nothing. It's a pacifier and it's a cheap one. So we wanted to raise the issues about Native Hawaiians and why can't we take care of ourselves? And why can't Article 12, Section 7 about judicial customary practice be applied as a reason why the state has to support this, because they have no record of them doing anything better. So we say, we'd like to do this. We'd like to take care of ourselves. What's wrong with that? You had your chance. Every race had their chance. Even the Hawaiian. They never did nothing about it. You know, in my activist years, fighting for access rights, burial rights, historical sites, access to this heiau, all these things are very cultural and religious and spiritually motivated. So we kind of wake up all the new Hawaiian lawyers, young lawyers, or lawyers who want to help and understand how to get us to win these access rights, burial protection, all this stuff. And that's my past experience, learning water, all these things. But nobody has ever stepped up to the human rights aspect of it. Nobody. Nobody challenged the system about the social problems of the Native Hawaiians today. There isn't any of these kind of arguments. It's access, like I said before, it's protection, traditional this and traditional that. This is the first time I see where there's a human rights issue stepping forward, where you can see different nationalities understanding about human rights. There's never been something in Hawaii talked about, maybe back in the day. But statistics, if we paid attention, that fits. Equal
justice and treatment fits